we are moving into a bizarre future, guys. And, when you realize that awakening to the truth is really putting yourself in a position that you're going to go through the stages of grief. You're going to deny, you're going to be in anger, you're going to get through, and you're finally going to make it to acceptance, hopefully. Most people don't get past anger. So to help get us and help us find out who we are, who are you? We're going to talk today with Jennifer Foster. And she is an amazing author. She has written the book The Answer and The Eye in the Storm, which is the letter I, meaning you in the storm. So The Answer and The Eye in the Storm, you can pick these up at energydynamic.co.uk, which is Jennifer Foster's website. And I hope you guys will all give a warm welcome, as you always do, to Jen. Welcome to the Free Zone.
Hello, Freeman. Thank you very much for having me on here.
I am very happy to speak with you, Jen, especially in such a pivotal and sad moment in time. And I hate to open with sadness. I really do, Jen. But I honestly was going to open the show because last week we had Valentine's Day. And, this is a day that most people really feel their loneliness. And it turns out the UK just admitted a minister of loneliness. Have you seen this? That loneliness is a health epidemic, as dangerous, they say, as being a heavy smoker.
Yeah, I did see that. And to me, it's so 1984. I don't know if you know the book, where they have these ministries which are kind of like create this illusion really of stuff. And it doesn't mean to say it's not true, but it's on its head, because one reason why people are lonely isn't because there's something wrong with us. It's because the system has created that, and we've allowed that really unconsciously, to be honest. But instead of saying that, the sort of institutions decide to turn it into a sort of medical condition, don't they? So people suddenly think that there is something wrong with them, rather than actually it could be society that's creating this, and we can actually do something about it.
Absolutely. This is a critical thing that people don't recognize. I think as a poor person, you start to see clearer what money does to people, because money allows you to isolate yourself in no uncertain terms.
When people are searching for money, I call that they're living in their mind. And one of the things I do is to differentiate between the sort of energy that human beings create and receive. And the mind energy is very much like a fire. And I say it's like when you get some, it's like an emotional hit. It's very intense, it's very addictive, and it's kind of quite nice. It's like, hooray, I've won. But the problem is that if you're in that mind dynamic, you are by default separating yourself from who you are and what you feel, which then separates you from another human being, because you start to see everything through your mind dynamic, which is all about the mind energy. It's got nothing to do with how you are and what you feel, and the connection that you can bring of love and care to other people. And you can't be in both zones at once, see? So just by thinking and chasing money automatically makes people cut off from who they are and cut off from their almost unique specialness of being a human being.
Yeah, you can clearly see when you visit or live in a poor community, the camaraderie and the unitedness of their plight, if you will, because they're usually the happiest people, and the most sharing, caring, giving, and nurturing people are the poorest people.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But so now we're looking at health epidemics, mental health epidemics, and we have this Florida school shooting at a high school. And, of course, immediately the internet is up in arms, and Nicholas Cruz is the accused villain. But yet, at the same time, we've got reports saying that Nicholas was walking down the hall with another girl, and she was laughing as the shots were fired. He had no gun. The shots were coming from somewhere else, and they laughed and said, "Well, we always thought it would be you, Nicholas. That would be the active shooter if anybody was going to come and shoot this school." And of course, the FBI also knew that he had threatened to be a school shooter on social media. But so here is a lonely character who was ostracized by his tribe and, kicked out of school and wanted vengeance in some way, reached out through social media in the hopes of saying, look, I'm going to be one of these shooters, trying to get some acknowledgement of his presence. And then maybe actually went and did it, but it seems like Sandy Hook, we're dealing with another story here.
Yes, it's sad but true that when people can't be who they are because they have grief, and trauma, they then have to go to their mind for a tick. Approval, as you said, is for their identity, and if they can't do that, then they actually start to panic, because they have nowhere to fall to, Yep. So sometimes people do this, and then if they don't succeed in finding approval in that way, that's when the beginnings of abuse comes along, because then they start to force people to give them approval, and then it can escalate into another one, which I've recently sort of put into the idea of, it's not even now just from a person, which would be a tick, but it's now through social media, which is like a plastic tick. So if you imagine a tick fire is like a burning piece of wood, so it's actually still real. So even though you might give me approval, Freeman, at least you're a person giving me approval. And people have even turned away from that now, and now do it through the computers, do it through social media. So they get a plastic tick, which is like a toxic tick, even more than a normal one. You see.
When you say tick, do you mean the bug?
Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, if you're at school and you do some sums and you get them all right and you get a tick.
No, that's a British term that I have no idea.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's if someone gives you a tick, like it's you've done well. You've got it right. You've got it right.
Okay.
And the opposite to it is a cross. So it's you could say it's a positive. It's a.
So in America, it'd be a gold star.
A gold star, yeah, great, yeah, a gold star. And if you imagine it's like wood, it's like this, and the experience you have of having a gold star is like you've set a piece of wood on fire, and it's a nice experience. It's a nice experience, and a lot of people need that because they haven't got any inner strength, any inner feelings, which I say is more like a goldfish bowl of clear water. It's very deep, it's very still, but it's not very intense in the sense that you can easily miss it. You see, you can easily miss that feel, because we're so trained by society to look for the gold star. So if you're looking for the gold star, you actually start to focus on that all the time. So missing out on all the nice feels that you could be gathering up instead.
Right. Well, yeah, because knowing who you are is far more complicated than most people think. I mean, let's consider this. You're a highly intelligent person. You were born into a happy, healthy family, and you have no idea that you are smarter than anyone around you. How could you? So you go to school, and suddenly you notice that other students are struggling with, say, math. And you're sitting there thinking, why is this a struggle for them? And then you're receiving these higher grades. And you see these other people struggling, but you don't really know that they think differently than you do. You don't understand why it's easy for you and difficult for them. And quite often, the most intelligent tend to be ostracized and shoved out of the core of the popular group. And so most of our smartest people end up on the outsides of the system. Generally, I always say, if you want to find the smartest kids in the school, go to detention, because they're the ones acting up.
Yeah, it's very, very common that. As you said, it's because they are different. And then because they are different, they can't really connect to people because the other people are, can't connect to them because they have different truths about who they are.
And you don't know. You don't know. You're sitting there wondering why that other person is struggling when you're not. You have to try and put the math together and realize what's going on to say, oh, well, maybe these people's brains don't work as fast, or, you know what I mean? When you're the smart person and you're looking at a lesser smart person, you don't know that you're smarter than them or that they think any differently. And this would work in any instance. If you were even somewhat, I was trying to use a positive, but let's say you had a mental disability. You still think that everybody thinks like you think because you have nothing to show you different, because you're in your own head,
Yeah, that's right. In the first book, The Answer, it ends with the sort of people realizing that the problem with all this, really, that the problem is that people don't know they don't know. you know and the people who do know that they don't know actually can do something about it, but they are, as you said, so sort of isolated by the people who don't know they don't know, that it actually, well, I kind of see it in a way, I mean, I suppose I've had to see it, it's quite a humorous situation, really, because it's all upside down, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. It's really, it's and so I feel like you, Jen, have, you've been seeking this answer with your book, The Answer, and the eye in the storm, and the idea that we have to start working on who we are and knowing who we are, recognizing our own value, and then being able to nurture others, even in our own sorrows, isolation, and loneliness, to be able to help others and kind of build up a merit banking system, if you will, a banking, not money, but in merit. And then this will give you the energy necessary because, as you're being drained, we're asked to then also hold up others. And the more and more this world turns, the more and more drain it definitely seems.
Yeah, the answer is all about the fact that the answer that the mainstream have told us is the answer is only half true, and that's very, very confusing. And one of the issues I've had a huge sort of battle with, to be honest with you, is all this emphasis on thought and mind and positive thinking. And the answer is actually looking at that and examining why this has happened, and the fact that if you start thinking about the answer and deciding to become successful and to hit your goals, what happens is that you start to look outside for, as you said, identity, approval, the gold stars, and then by default cut off from the solution, which is who you are and what you feel and what you know. And once you can connect into the who you are, what you feel and what you know zone, which if you imagine is sort of around your stomach area, it's like your gut, it's like your intuition, it's where you live, once you start seeing that as the solution rather than just following what the mainstream society says the answer is, your whole experience of reality shifts. It completely changes.
Well, without a doubt, even without a minister of loneliness, anyone that goes through this type of grief knows that there is a physical component to this. And when you talk about the gut mind, and if you're in loneliness, isolation, then that gut mind is somewhat like a badger trying to back itself into the cave while gritting its teeth and bearing a growl. And you can feel that. You can feel the bodily effects of your emotions.
That's right. One of the ways I illustrate this is by saying that if you imagine where in your gut area, as I said, you have the sparkling water in the goldfish bowl. That's good feels, and there's only two feels. There's good, peaceful feels, or there's sad, grief feels. And what happens is if you can't connect to people, you start to gather up sad feels, and they're like little drops of dark water, which you could compare to like Coca-Cola or something. And what the brain has done over time, to stop your sparkling water being drowned by this dark grief, what it does, if you can imagine this, it puts it in bottles. So your sparkling water is still clear, but inside that goldfish bowl of feelings, that's what I call it, you have lots of dark bottles of Coke hanging around in there. And they're, what you're saying, they are the source of the emotion, that these dark feels are the source of negative emotion. So when something happens around you that makes these dark bottles of grief sort of chink inside you, they start to fizz and fizz right up, and they go from your stomach into your mind, and then you experience anger, panic, fear, anxiety, all because you're carrying around this grief feel. And as you said, as the process of this kind of carries on, you do gather up more feels, because you start to realize and start to experience what it's like to be who you are in this artificial construct of modern society. So it is quite difficult. And one of the things I work a lot on with people is how to keep those good feels up. Because if your good feels are up, then slowly the dark feelings, the dark grief bottles can empty away very slowly, and then you become more peaceful. But it is that is called a sort of healing crisis, and that is often when you do become a little bit ill, or something happens, because you do experience a temporary time where your bottle's empty and you feel very sad.
Yes. So we really need to focus on where is your mind, right?
Well, the mind is kind of like in your head, in this sort of imaginary way of imagining how people work. And your mind really is only supposed to process information. That's what it was designed for. And that's really, when we were cavemen, what happened. We would be naturally who we are, and naturally sort of connecting with our tribe, and naturally nurturing each other. And the mind was quiet, because the mind was just processing. That's all it was doing. And it's only, I think, probably in the last 80 years, this has switched. And what's happened now, because people have put so much emphasis on their thinking and on their mind, instead of understanding what's happening and having knowledge through their own truth and their own experience and their own doing things and learning trades and hands-on stuff, because we can't do that anymore. Instead of our mind just processing information, it's almost like our brain has said, hold on a minute, we are so low in our own good feel energy now, we're so low in that, we're going to just stop. We're just going to have to stop, because we can't get through time if we have no energy. So if we have low feel power, we can't actually keep up with time. So somewhere along the lines, and this is what the answer book sort of examines in quite a lot of detail, somewhere along the time, because of various things, we've adapted. We've actually become, at the beginnings of a different species, to adapt to this low power feel. And instead we've become sort of driven by the energy our mind has started to create. And that is all about what we were saying, the gold star. That's all about approval. It's all about fitting in. It's all about being the best, in a competitive way. And the brain has actually sort of redesigned us so we can carry on through time in this modern society, because the brain has told the mind to take control. And that's one thing I look at in the second book, which is mind control, because now we are focused on our mind to gather up our energy, because it's so difficult to find energy from being who we are in a kind and humble way and nurturing. It's so difficult to do that in this society. It's actually changed the way our human being collection of energy operates, and we're sort of turning into a different species where we're becoming mind controlled and gathering up mind energy. And that's what you said, that's why people have become separate, because in the mind world 1 + 1 is 11. I work for you for an hour, you give me £10. 1 and 1 is 11. Nothing's created there. It's just a rational sort of swap, yeah. Whereas if we live in the feel zone, in the who we are, in the creative and in the love zone, 1 plus 1 creates 2. And 2 is a completely different animal to a 1 and a 1. So if you do something, Freeman, and I do something, and we do it together, from that idea, from those 2 ideas, will become something different and bigger and a different nature to just what me and you've put into it, because that's the human alchemy, you know, that's the human magic, isn't it, of creation. And that's how we were really designed to be. But instead, and again, because of modern society is what I am sort of looking at really, we have become mind controlled, and now we've lost that human magic. We've lost that ability to create something amazing, because we're stuck in our mind being rational and just creating lots and lots of ones.
As opposed to
being who you are, feeling good and nurturing, and then creating something with other people that's bigger than what those people as an individual put into it.
And this is where more of your gut mind comes into play.
Yeah, I don't really know the phrase gut mind, but I could probably call that the gut brain.
Right. Okay. So I'm working out our terms here to get the difference between brain, mind, and so we'll say gut brain and brain, and then the mind.
The mind is just the processor. The mind is where you will think. I can tell you an example if you want to bear with me.
Sure.
If you imagine a house, if you're in the garden, so you're outside the house in the garden, and you're hugging your children, you can smell the flowers, you're cooking, you're doing your thing. That is what it's like being in your feel zone, where you feel good or you feel sad. And that's also where your brain has knowledge, like an intuitive knowledge of what's going on and just how to do things. That's where that lives. If you imagine going into the first floor of the house, where the bedrooms are, this is what it's like when you go into your mind, and you can actually experience it of actually being in your head. I don't know if you can do that, but as soon as you start thinking, you leave the garden and the feel and the knowing, and you actually go into the first floor, into your head. And what you start to do is you start to observe what's going on in your reality. You're still in the present, but you're observing and you're thinking about it. So you're thinking about the flower, you're thinking about the children, you're thinking about the cooking, but you're not actually doing it. You're not actually creating anything. You're thinking about it. So that's how the mind is. And I sort of say, well, that's sort of the observing. So you're observing reality. You're thinking about it rather than being in it and doing it and creating it. And then there's another level too above that. And imagine if you're on the roof of the house. And this is what I call spirit energy. So if you imagine you're on the roof, you are then looking down past the first floor in the bedroom and down into the garden. And what people tend to do when they're like in that state is they tend to start to judge what's going on in the mind and on the ground from whatever religious sort of background they have. And one of the tricks is that if you can understand or accept the fact that we are actually all created as unique human beings, and actually start to see the who you are you have been made into, the who you are, because everyone is different and everyone is unique. If you start to see that as a spiritual sort of creation yourself, you see yourself as a spiritual creation, what you're then able to do is to leave the roof, to leave being up there in judgment almost, and to bring your spiritual sort of energy, your spiritual energy into your gut brain, into the garden, and then start to really nurture who you are, because that's what you're here for. And by then connecting with other people, so I might be really good at flowers and you might be really good, I don't know, at drawing. So if we then both sort of appreciated our uniqueness and valued that as a sort of gift, then together we could create something really, really amazing.
Yes, and so that applied to the entire planet, and we get a whole new world.
Yes, we do. We do. And it really is that simple. It really is so simple. But so many people are stuck in their mind dynamic and observing and thinking. And so many people are stuck in the spiritual dynamic, which again is on the roof looking down, when really they need to bring their spirit down into themselves rather than themselves going up, if you follow. Um,
Yes.
we need to bring it down. We need to bring it down into reality, into our three-dimensional planet. And this is why I think energy is so key. And this is something I picked up from one of your interviews, Freeman, the other day, where if you imagine the spirit energy, there is no time, there is no space in spirit energy. So everything is everything, and everything is everything at once, isn't it? Now the thing is that because we live in a three-dimensional planet, and this has got three-dimensional space, we need energy to get through that. We actually need to get through each moment of time. And that energy needs to have a mass, because we live in a planet that has mass. So it's almost like we need to bring that spirit energy that is massless, yeah, into this three-dimensional planet by bringing it down through our human beingness, and then use this feel energy to get us through the moment. And so we can then take that spiritual idea and create it into a mass. And that's what I mean by alchemy. So an idea is turned into an actual object.
Right. It actually manifests. That's the
Yes.
key ingredient, because like
Yes.
social media, I mean, that's all mind and mind control.
Yes.
It's you're never not in your mind when you're dealing. I usually describe social media as an infinite bathroom wall, just waiting for your graffiti, right?
Yeah, well, there you go. It's the first floor, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
on the same level as the bedrooms.
So now we've manifested the first floor of the mind control state
Yes.
instead of manifesting, a community.
Brilliant. Yes. Yes. Because if
Right.
we can bring it down into the garden, into the real, into the feel, and into the who you are, that's when we have to create a mass of something, a physical thing. And that is what, again, maybe we can talk about this later. But that's all this AI. I'm quite interested in this sort of intelligence, this computer intelligence thing. But if we as human beings can create something, a mass from just an idea, which might not sound fantastic, but it is if you kind of get to grips with this spiritual who you are and what we're here to do, which is to create this world around us. And if we can do that in a kind and humble way, we then start to make that magic, which is, as I said, turning a one and a one into a two,
Yes. And I absolutely know this to be the truth. And guys, I'm going to just bring this into the conversation real quick. That I go to the rainbow gatherings almost every year for the last, I don't know how many years, 25 years. And this is a community of everyone. It's not hippies. It's old people, young people. It's every walk of life comes out and lives primitive. We build kitchens out of the mud and dirt and the fallen trees. We build stages. One year, people built a life-size pirate ship as a stage out of dead wood. Nothing died for this creation. And what happens is 20 to 30,000 people gather on the 4th of July, build this wonderful manifested community of all walks of life. Everybody lives in harmony, eats, is nurtured. There's no fear, no worries, no nothing other than the authorities that occasionally come in with their weapons. But I am going to do this year is my plan, and I just want to throw it out to the listening audience there real quick, Jen, to say that I think I'm going to build Freeman's Kitchen this year. So I hope that a lot of you will come to the gathering this year and see what it's like to start from the ground floor, from the garden,
Yeah.
from the primitive, and build up from there.
I love what you've just said about the bathroom, the bathroom graffiti, because what the social media is kind of like, Freeman, is is me saying to you, well, look at the graffiti on my bathroom wall, and you saying to me, well, look at my graffiti on my bathroom wall, and that's because that's what we're focusing on. That's what we're doing, and so the whole of the social media is just a series of graffitis on bathroom walls,
It's true, isn't it?
which is kind of like crazy, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and and that's what people are perceiving because that's what they're focusing on. And I make a huge point in the second book is that what you focus on and what you give your energy to is what information you gather up. So the more time you spend in the graffiti bathroom, the less time you are in the garden, and that's well, it's a complete shame, but not only is it a shame, but your brain gets used to being like that,
Right.
and then it becomes really difficult to leave the bathroom because you become so sort of you need the graffiti on the walls to give you your identity, which is what we spoke about earlier.
Absolutely. It's we are getting energy zapped and sucked in every way,
Yeah,
shape, or form, and it's
yeah,
up to us to go and seek beauty to
yes,
be able to build the buoyancy necessary to give energy to the others.
yes. And you can only do that when you're on the ground floor, when you're in the garden, when you're in
Yes.
who you are. That's where they kind of live, and that's the only time you can do that. And that makes human beings unique when it comes to computers. Um, but the fact that some people or whatever, this sort of computer thing, this smartphones and all this malarkey, is that we are not like computers. We are different, and the main difference is the fact that we are loving and creative beings. That is the difference. But if we leave that space, and if we leave the garden, and if we do start to live on the first floor in the bathroom doing graffitis, we actually do become very like a computer because we're in the mind dynamic, and the mind dynamic operates in the same way as a computer because 1 and 1 makes 11. You know and
Yes.
nothing creative or nothing of feel comes out of it because computers can't feel and the mind isn't designed to feel. All it's designed to do, as I said initially, is to process information. But because we've all become corrupted, it's now become the gold star energy collection sort of headquarters and runs most people.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And people are afraid to share their knowledge with others, afraid to get into conversations that might be take a gold star and get them a check instead of a tick. And
Yeah, that's right.
so
That's right.
they're holding back on who
Yeah.
they are because they
Yeah.
don't want to seem like a freak.
Well, yes, and they've probably forgotten who they are as well because it's literally like a different radio sort of vibration. It's a different vibration.
Very
So
true.
the more you listen to that, the more you're on the first floor, the more you're tuned into that vibration. Because on one level, Freeman, it does work. On one level, collecting gold stars does work. It does give you energy, and energy is what you need to survive in this 3D planet. You need it to get through time. You need it to get through time, yeah? So in a funny sort of way, it does work because you get gold stars, and that does do the job, from a very pragmatic survival point of view. Um, but as I said, but it takes away all the focus and all the time you have to actually be creating and to being and to doing this sort of human purpose we have.
Yeah, we have completely lost sight of that all over with the concepts of a new world order and the
Yeah.
idea of having a dominant force controlling every aspect of your life. Very few people feel that they have the peace of mind to just go sit and look at a beautiful plant. You
Mm.
know?
Yeah, yeah. That's right. And they're just addicted to their gold stars. It's very addictive. It's an addictive sort of energy, and it's also very, very short-lived. So they need another one, then another one, and then another one. Whereas the feel energy, which, as I said, is more like water, you carry it with you, and it doesn't go away. It only gets used up as you go through time, which is not much. A little bit. A little bit goes, and then you create a little bit more. A little bit goes, you create a little bit more. There's a balance there. That there is a balance, but with the mind energy, it's so short-lived. A gold star really, really probably only lasts at the most for a couple of days. And then people want more, don't they? They want more. And not only that, but the bar is raised because gold stars are relative. So it's not good enough for me to have, 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I want a 10 out of 10. Then I want a 20 out of 20. Then I want a 30, and it's endless. And you're constantly sort of chasing a moving goal.
Yeah. And, from a personal note, I definitely know that the mean tweets, the mean comments, tend to stick with me more than the positive ones.
Oh, right.
That's just something I think all of us that are in this business deal with is,
Yeah.
it's like a horrifying thing for me to go and read my YouTube comments,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be upset for a couple of days thinking about, well, no, they're wrong about that. That's not what I meant. And,
I know.
and it gets my feels all in a rile.
You get it probably does get your feels everywhere, yeah. And the thing is that it's taken me about 30 years to do this work, and for about 23 of them, Freeman, I have been kind of treated like a sort of a strange freak. So
Mm-hmm.
so although people who have known me well have really valued it because it's worked for them, because I sort of based it on what I observed really. But it's only very recently I've started to get a few gold stars, so I kind of don't really know what to do with them.
Right, right. Well, you're out there helping a lot of people, and you give online courses. Plus, you're right in the middle of it all, trying to help people find themselves and to understand with people with disabilities, trying to find their way on this planet. And so often, all you do is find out who they are, and then you put them where they belong. I mean, it seems so simple.
It is very simple, to be honest. And what I'm actually doing now is I mean, the good news is I've written the books and I've done the courses. That's taken me about 7 years to do that, and I've done that now. So what I'm really doing now is I'm looking for people who want to use this idea in their work, in their organisation, with whoever they work with, so they can then take it out there and they can use it for themselves. Because it's not so much hoping anymore, because I have been sort of doing this for about 6 months in this way, and there are people who all they need is a book, all they need are the videos, that's all they need, and they can carry on and they can take it into their community and they can start making a real difference with it. So I'm not really doing any one-to-one work now, really. I do the odd little bit, but really I'm doing these talks. I'm sort of wanting to do more talks in the UK, and I want to start doing live talks as well, just to get the idea out there so people can then go and use it themselves, because it's all about that. It's not about me at all. It's just an imaginary idea that once people can imagine this idea, how they work, and they can understand the importance of who they are, because it's all about the feel, basically. But first of all, they have to understand that it's different from the mind. And as you and I, it's quite difficult at first for people to get the concept. It's quite a hard concept to understand because the terminology is not very clear. Lots of different words mean lots of different things. So what I've done as well is at the back of the books, I've got a glossary. There's 10 pages of words that I've used to explain things like, for example, with a child, when they feel angry, what I have on one of the courses I run is that you call that a fizzy mind, or my mind's going fizzy, So children can start to identify, oh, I'm going to have a fizz in a minute. So it takes out all the sort of negative issue type words, and I describe mental health problems as, again, using gentle language like that. So people can come one step back, one step away from the actual quite nasty experience they're having, and actually say, oh, actually, that's a gold star, that's a tick, that's a feel, that's a bottle, that's a fizz, And as soon as they start to be able to talk about it and to understand it, they do feel better sort of pretty much straight away, because as you know, knowledge is power, isn't it? Knowledge is power. And once people know this, they can then use it how they want to use it, So that's really what I want to do now, is just to be able to give talks and to get people to understand that there is a way of understanding how people work, which is very, very simple and is very safe.
Well, maybe you should get in contact with the Minister for Loneliness. I'd like to see you in that position.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows, eh?
Yeah. You know, that's kind of been my philosophy all along is play life. And I
Yeah.
never really gave much thought to my future. I still don't. You know, here I am 50 and I still haven't planned for my retirement or anything like that. I never gave any thought to my future. I lived each day. I went out there. I just started wandering the earth, meeting people, and each thing led me to the next thing.
Yeah.
All the knowledge that I gathered, I would say, came to me. I didn't go looking for any of it. It was, you know, here, there, and everywhere I went just kind of fulfilled my purpose. And so
Yeah.
I kind of became this, hopefully an icon of the synchronicity to share that this is a reality, because synchronicity is one of those things that occurs in your life when you've got feel goods and you're out there and you're in your full self. And
Yeah.
people see this and they want to be a part of that. And then without begging or without thinking, all your needs are met and friends are everywhere and life is unfolding in this grandiose style that is usually only ascribed to millionaires. But
Yeah.
when you're in your full self and you're out there, not only does your life unfold in a magical way, a miraculous way, I would say, but also knowledge. It finds you, and you're a welcoming vessel to it all.
Yeah, that's right. I'm 52. That's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess we're at that point.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean, and as I said, it's a very amazing and magical experience, isn't it? But the thing is, though, is that to try and explain that to people is really difficult, and that's why I sort of
Right.
ended up writing books, because I found a lot of this out by working with people with learning difficulties and mental health problems, and I kind of saw them get better, and I was like, well, how come they're getting better? What's happening? What's happening around them? And this is where I sort of started to develop the idea that of the feels, you know, is distinct from mind, and how if you give someone a good feel, they actually feel better. And I know that sounds common sense, but that is overlooked. That is overlooked in most of the mainstream ideologies.
Absolutely, without a doubt. The answers are so simple that people think that it can't be possibly the answer. You know, obviously we live in a very complicated time, and just changing my mind isn't going to change the world, Jen.
Yeah.
But that's not true. Changing your mind will change the world. It'll change the world around you immediately. You'll have all new experiences if you're open to it, and then this will just, as a vibration or whatever it is, will radiate throughout, and we start to see the shift. And we know, as you call it, mind control. Is the problem here? Everybody's in their darn heads, and
That's right. Yeah, that's right. One thing. Sorry to interrupt you,
no,
but
go right ahead.
one little point there. um, what I found is that if you kind of go with this split of mind in your head and fire emotion with the gut brain and the water field, if you go with that split, what happens is that if you change how you feel by changing your environment, that's the key. You don't change you change your environment to fit in with how you are. So you don't you're not a square peg trying to fit into a round hole. What you do is you think, well, I'm a square peg, let's make a square peg world. Yeah. So by changing how you feel because you change your environment, what then happens is your mind then changes itself. Yeah. Your mind changes itself because your mind is created by what you feel. And again, this is a very important point in this model, because what a lot of people do, with the best will in the world, to be honest, with the best will in the world and with the best intention in the world, is they don't actually change anything, but they make a huge effort to change the way they think about it. Yeah. So they end up changing their mind, but they actually haven't changed their situation. And I think that's one of the huge problems of society today, is that everyone is kind of desperately trying to change their minds so they think they're better, instead of forgetting about their mind. And again, there's ways of doing that in the books. Not concentrating on their mind, and then really getting to grips with what they feel and what can they change around them to make that better. And that's when you start to change society, Freeman. That's when change manifests, because you're doing it on that vibrational level.
Now, I know you probably don't know this, Jen, but you are nearly describing ritual magic.
Right.
And I'll just explain that. In ritual magic, your goal is to alter your environment to put you into the conscious state that you're attempting to achieve to perform the manifestation that you are trying to come up with. So as a magician would go into his altar room, he would make sure that the incense, the colors, the lights, everything around him was embedded with that concept, and then change the consciousness at will using the environment that you're in to then project out and manifest the desired effect.
Yeah. Well,
amazing.
Yeah, and everyone can do this, Freeman. Everyone can do this, in their own ground floor. Everyone could do it in their own ground floor, and sometimes it's as simple, because in the book I define who you are, but I don't define it from a philosophical point of view or anything like that. It's just a practical point of view. It's just what I've seen work. Yeah, so I'm not saying it's true or it's right. I'm just saying it's what works. So once you get to grips with who you are, and one of those things is this simple, it's what I prefer doing. So say I prefer, I don't know, to go for a walk in the morning. If I then change my environment, so I am going for a walk in the morning, I've done the human magic thing, because I then start to generate what I call a plus feel, because I've changed my environment, because I've bought into who I am. I like going for a walk in the morning. And then I'm going for a walk in the morning, and that's what I've changed.
I get it. It. Very simple, very easy, but so transformational.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And you immediately start to generate this good feel vibration, which is completely different from the mind.
And it changes the way people interact with you.
It does. I mean, it's I've personally found that a bit of a double-edged sword. I don't know if you have, Freeman, but I've personally found it quite difficult, because, I mean, one reason why I have done all this work is because I'm quite isolated in a little sort of town in Wales where everyone sort of wanders around all day and nothing really happens, and
yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore I've done what I can, which is this. That's what I've done. So it's not sort of often suddenly all lovely, It's very much a case of really dealing with the first part of who you are. And if I see a client, I recommend the easiest part of the who you are thing to do. And then do it quite gently, because as we've just discussed earlier, is that as soon as you start to generate those plus feels, what happens is your bottles of grief start to empty. Your mind then changes because your grief is emptying, and you suddenly start to see things very differently, and that can cause quite a lot of trouble, because suddenly you might not suddenly you might think, well, actually, I don't know if that person is actually my friend. Maybe they're just wanting a gold star off me. Maybe we're in a bit of a gold star dynamic. So it can cause all sorts of repercussions as you do start to change your reality. So it can be quite a difficult process.
Yeah. Yes, you're gonna lose some and gain some.
Yeah.
Well, folks, the question is, who are you? Are you valued? And are you being, or are you trying to be? These are the questions answered by Jennifer Foster. I highly recommend checking out her books, The Eye in the Storm and The Answer. And you will find all of this on her lovely website, energydynamic.co.uk. And of course, the links will be right there in the show description. Do you do Twitter, Jen?
Yeah, I've got Energy Dynamic Twitter and Energy Dynamic Facebook.
Right on. Got to stay in the feed, because if you're not in the feed, you don't exist.
and YouTube is my main thing. YouTube is Energy Dynamic, and I've actually set up. Well, I'm going to set up another channel called The Stop Before Nowhere, where I kind of do, sort of talks to myself.
Right. I've been there. I know. Yeah. I understand that one.
Well, there's some on my Energy Dynamic YouTube, and what my aim is what my gold star mind target is, Freeman, is to get a new website up and running, and then when my new website is up and running, then I'm going to do a lot more social media. But at the moment, I'm not really doing much at all, because I'm wanting to concentrate on these interviews and getting everything in a good position,
Yes. It takes time and work and effort to change the world, Jennifer.
Indeed.
But again, if you're not in the feed, you don't exist. And that's the unfortunate part of the World Wide Web today. A website hardly matters. Even the biggest shows on television use hashtags, because if you're not in the feed, you don't exist. And now the algorithms are wiping away all the thoughts that they don't want anybody to hear. And it's getting very interesting inside this World Wide Web. I really, honestly, Jen, have lived a virtual life for the last 13 years, or at least it kind of seems that way. Most of my interaction has gone through this box, and more of my existence happens on the World Wide Web than it does around me. But I do try to change that and change things up, get out there and do, to make this all known to everyone. It has been my goal to awaken people to the miraculous nature of knowing who you are and changing your mind.
Yes. And then once you start to do that, then you become almost, like a magic person.
Exactly. Well, this is a great place for us to wrap up this first hour, Jen. I hope everybody will go over and check out the online courses and the articles and books that she has, that Jen has brought to you, because this is more important than proving the president is a criminal. It really is, folks. You will get more change, and positive change, about going this in a positive fashion as opposed to attacking the villain. We will find our way out of this without the attack of the villain, because you got to realize that when you're attacking, you're just bringing more, and you're bringing bad feels and attacks and just exacerbating the entire system. So don't feel like going out and sitting in beauty is a waste of time. It isn't. It is all you should be doing, and then bringing that life and that nurture and that need to these people dying of loneliness. It's so simple, but it doesn't seem possible, but we're all here to tell you that it is. And so thank you all so much for tuning in for this hour. And again, thank you all for chipping in this month. It really, really did make a difference. And, it was only 40 people that made all the difference in the world. Maybe another 40 will do it this week. Who knows? But, this keeps me strong. It keeps my gold stars going and allows me to just work, which is what I'm trying to do instead of worry about homelessness. So you are all very appreciated. And this is why I do this show, is for you, not for your money. The kick-in is just something that I've been suggesting over time, because podcasting is such a new occupation that we don't know how to get paid to do it. And so, the easiest way is for you just to chip into $1 to your favorite podcaster whenever it hits your mind, and they're satisfied and satiated and ready to go, and they feel that, and they know that you care. So it really makes a huge difference, and it really made a huge difference for me this month. So thank you all again. And, if you're not a member, think about it. come on over, check it out. Member section is getting plush, it's getting full, it's amazing, and you won't regret it. It's a great way to share your value with others. So thank you all so much, and I will see you next week.